Hi, Kia ora. We got very good response from our last chit-chat session with Tanuva and Vandana. So we thought of doing some more to bring some very useful information for all of our viewers out there.
If you want us to cover any specific topic, do comment below.
We are going to bring to you a series on residence applications and what to look out for, what are the common questions, common doubts, common confusions when you're thinking about putting your residence application. We are going to call this podcast License to Talk.
Yes, that's what we are.
Yes, because we are licensed immigration advisors and we are here to answer all your questions and give you some useful information about residence pathways to New Zealand and what are the things to look out for when you are applying for residence. So hear it from the horse's mouth and get licensed immigration advice. So Vandana, I'm sure you meet a lot of people, right? I mean, we've got people walking into our office talking about, I want to apply for residence. I'm currently on my student visa or I'm currently on my accredited employer work visa. What should I do to apply or what should I do to prepare for my residence? So what are some of the questions that we think? I think we could start with just doing the mandatory sort of lodgement requirements today.
Yeah. And very important because the immigration fees is a big amount.
Yeah.
Can't afford to go wrong. So if I talk about the major documents or which kind of sometimes have the application decision surprisingly different or declined, one of them is the police clearance certificate. Police clearance certificate is a mandatory lodgement requirement. A lot of clients are not aware that which all countries are from where the police clearance is needed. So is it only from the country of birth or country of citizenship or where they've lived for 12 months? If they've lived for 12 months, is it required to be 12 months in one go? Or if they've lived for 12 months, but 1 month, 2 months, and total making 12 months, would they still need? A lot of confusion out there. Also, what is the correct type of police clearance? Sometimes they get the wrong document, and because it's written conviction check, character check, they presume it's a police clearance, and they don't realize what is the actual document that Immigration New Zealand requires for residence. And recently, Immigration has started taking a decision on the application if the police clearance is not submitted with whatever they have, without giving additional time for the police clearance to be then requested. What that means is a lot of times applications just get declined because a lot of countries police clearance can be a long drawn process and cannot receive it in 15 working days or so. So that's one major thing.
And that's a fairly easy decision for immigration. I mean, they don't even have to assess anything else. Police clearance certificate not provided, incorrect one, shush, decline. That's it. End of story.
Fees gone.
All fees gone. I mean, and that's terrible. It's such a terrible loss of money for the people. And another thing, just regarding the police clearance certificates also, is like sometimes immigration says, no, if you have already supplied it with the previous application, up to 24 months, you can use it for a subsequent application. It is not the case for residents. Please remember this. If you've submitted a police certificate with a previous temporary entry application, that is not going to be valid for your residence application, unless, of course, it's a partnership based. But that's the only sort of residence application where it be accepted.
Not for any skill category or
Yeah, not at all. So police certificate, one of the most important things that you need to prepare for and have it before you submit your application. Very, very important. Now, moving on from that, the other thing that we do come across is about partners being included in residence application. Well, partnership instructions aside, 12 months is the mandatory requirement, right? So you need to know when you can include your partner, whether you should include your partner, whether you can exclude your partner from residence, and if included, whether your partner is going to be granted residence or not along with you. Now, those are the other sort of assessments that will need to be met, and it will depend on a lot of factors surrounding that relationship and what are the circumstances for your partner as well for them to be included and how that sort of impacts the residence application.
Of course. And see, even if the applicant have not lived together 12 months, which is the residence partnership instructions, a lot of times clients are not aware they can still include the partner. So what will happen is if they are able to they will save a lot of money because then they don't have to apply and pay for a separate residence application. And at the same time, they're not aware that they are required to include if the partner is already on a partnership application. So a lot of things that they should be aware of, not only to save money, but also just making sure they don't do it wrong.
Yeah, correct. The other thing that we are sort of also facing is, especially with skilled residence applications, is the requirement of having an accredited employer. Now, the residence instructions do state that the employer can be accredited either at the time of application or before it's decided. But what makes most sense? How can you reduce the risk on your application? When should truly the employer be accredited is again another very, very important sort of consideration to keep in mind when you are preparing your residence application. So having those conversations with the employer, knowing all of that information beforehand is always going to be a very good sort of information to have, when thinking about residence pathways.
Yeah, and can't take any risk on the application if the employer accreditation application is under process. So whether it will be approved or not, so you really cannot take any risk on the residence application. Other than that, few things that the clients have confusion on: the employment agreement. What is the fixed term employment agreement? Whether it's a permanent, ongoing employment agreement, or whether it's a contract of services. When can it be used? When not? Fixed term, 12 months fixed term. Okay, but are they required to have 12 months when they submit the application, or can they start the employment for a 12 months fixed term and then subsequently apply will it work? There's a lot of confusion in that space. A lot of times applicants are not aware that they can still go ahead and apply even though the remaining fixed term is less than 12 months, and that delays the residence, or they're not aware that they can apply, or get the wrong confirmation. Casual employment agreement, no guaranteed hours. What then? A lot of times, clients are not aware of what these employment agreement terms have an impact on their processing, or whether they're eligible on that.
And Vanna, isn't it important for them to actually know it beforehand, before they even accept such employment? It's always good to know beforehand, how would this impact my residence, eligibility. It's always good to have that information beforehand, rather than when you're at the fag end of, you need to apply for your residence like sooner rather than later, and that's when it clicks that, oh my goodness, my employment agreement doesn't even make me eligible. I mean, by then you've lost out on a lot of very, very important time. And it's it is important because A, as you correctly said, the fee for residence is quite high. B is you could be on a temporary entry visa in New Zealand and you may not have all the time on your hands. So make those decisions earlier on in the piece rather than wait till the end to consult an advisor to understand, whether that employment agreement actually is fit for purpose or not.
And that's the reason we have the option of doing an eligibility assessment, because a lot of times clients think that, okay, I'll go to an advisor when I am ready to sign up. Maybe not. You need to go to an advisor when you have to start your new employment, or see what employment works and get an eligibility assessment done. What that would mean is you would exactly know, does this employment agreement has all the mandatory clauses needed for residents, or it would also tell you, okay, maybe this job is not making me come on the eligibility, but then what are the other options? Because our eligibility assessment, we would also give options. Okay, maybe not this, if this is corrected, or this probably takes you to the residence paths the fastest. Yeah.
And also, there are a lot of skilled residence pathways that immigration has, and a lot of people tend to sort of go on to Google to see whether, this is eligible or would I be eligible, and they base their decisions on what Google or ChatGPT has to tell them. But immigration instructions are not all that clear. They are not black or white. There are so many nuances to each immigration instructions. It's about when something is effective, when something is not effective, when your occupation was on the list. If your occupation is no longer on the list, what do you have to do? So there are a lot of these questions. And if you get it wrong when you submit the application, there is really no black peddling from there. It is done at that time. So that information gathering and that understanding of your own circumstances and where it fits in the immigration instructions is something that you need to really invest some time into a long while before you're actually ready to apply for your residence, because that is part of your preparation. And if you're well prepared, you can expect a good outcome. You will be you will have those better outcomes coming your way only. But preparation is the key. It's to know the information, know the correct information, and consult somebody who can assist you in your path.
And that's the reason we are starting this series, License to Talk. We will talk about various concerns, what are the options, commonly asked questions. So please keep an eye on what comes next. If you want us to cover any specific topic, do comment below. We'll be more than happy to cover that in our next series. But then we wanted to give this information out because a lot of times clients hesitate going to an advisor and ask ChatGPT. So please don't ask ChatGPT. Seek immigration advice, even though we will not give any tailored advice in this series, but we will talk about the options available and we'll guide you in the right direction.
Yeah. ChatGPT is good for most things, but probably not for licensed immigration advice. So yeah, watch this space and we would love to talk to you more. And yeah, catch you next time.